So if we could start this meeting, maybe if you would feel like closing your eyes or lowering your gaze and simply be. Doing nothing, being is not an activity, it is what we are. So being or to be is sort of a recognition or a resting. You may notice sensations within the body. The subtle movement of the chest, the heartbeat. You are that which notices. You are the noticing, the presence. Allow things to be as they are. Do not interfere. When a thought arises, allow it all the space it needs. whichever way it appears. You are the spaciousness of awareness, in which and out of which perception appears. All is well as it is. Nothing is at stake. When you follow a thought, in fact, you don't go anywhere. There is nothing to get in following a thought or in following a sensation. There is nothing there. The peace, the tranquility, the equanimity is in being, not being somebody simply being, which is our true nature. Do not seek any experience. There is nothing in an experience. It's just mind stuff. You are before any experience. You already are that which you are. You don't need to leave it to become something else. You are the peace of being, the presence. Whenever you imagine yourself to be something else, you leave yourself, you leave the peace. You can let things be as they are. This way you don't limit yourself to the content of your thoughts and feelings. Let your thoughts and feelings be as they are, whatever they are, without engaging in them. Like the wind or like the song of the birds. Okay, so we could open our eyes now, and we can dedicate the remaining time that's available to us during this meeting for whatever questions, whatever you want to explore together. So keep in mind you may need to unmute your mic and or write your comments in the chat box.
Hi, Maggie.
Hello, George.
I have a question regarding thoughts and choice. When you started the meditation, I had the thought, I think I'll turn my video off. And so I turned my video off during the meditation. Now, did I have a choice? It seems like I had a choice. I could have turned my video off or I could not have. So it appears that I had a choice. But logically, it seems that there was no choice because the thought came, I think I'll turn the video off, and I didn't choose that thought. The thought just came. So logically, it seems that there's no choice. On the other hand, experientially, it seems that I have a choice. I wonder if you could comment on that, please.
So the thought arises, how about turning the video off? And yes, this thought just arose to you, appeared to you. And then there was the possibility of turning the video off or not. And let's say, I'm assuming, okay, just stay with me for this conversation. So there were two options. Thought A, turn the video off, and thought B, well, maybe not. And thought A got the winning ticket. And so I turned the video off. Now, thought A winning, being the thought of choice over thought B, what determined that between thought A and thought B, thought A is what I prefer? I determined that. I've preferred whether I wanted to explore that option or whether I felt, yeah, that's what I want to do. To take that option. The question is, what is this I that chose thought A over thought B? Now, how many I's are there? There is only one I. And we all refer to I. We all say I chose thought A over thought B. So there's one I, around two I's. Now, one could say that this I has a name of George, but if I say the name of I is George, I am led to also say that the name of that I is Diana, Magdi, Holly, Jazalina, Jenny, etc. Because there is one I. So that one I, you can call it by infinite names, which amounts to calling it by no name. All names and no name amount to the same. So there is one I. I refers to awareness, consciousness. And the reality that perceives, because it is the reality that perceives which chooses. That if that which is not real perceives, which already is an oxymoron, that would lead us to the conclusion to that which is not real is choosing, which is even a worse blunder. So let's stick with whatever it is that is real, that perceives, is that same, whatever it is, that perceives, that also chooses. So in this moment, what is it that perceives? I perceive. I, consciousness. Now I understand that we may confuse consciousness with the instrument, with the body-mind instrument, but that confusion can be relatively easily debunked, and we can relatively quickly come to the correct understanding of what I refers to, which leaves us where vis-a-vis your question?
The problem is that in the example you gave, there was no thought B. Thought A arose, and I didn't have another thought that says, well, maybe I should follow thought A or maybe I shouldn't. It seems that thought A arose, and I don't know which is the I, but somehow, okay. So thought A arose, and then the action followed.
Yes, okay, so in this case, thought A arose and it was absolute, I mean, there was just thought A, I'd like to turn off the video, and then I turn off the video. So.
Right, that's in fact what happened, yes.
Okay, so therefore, it's even simpler. Thought A arises to I, right? It arises to I awareness.
Right, okay, yes.
And I awareness acts upon it, decides, okay, yeah, it works. I can do that.
Yeah, the thing is that I don't have the experience of that last part. I don't have the experience of the additional thought, oh, okay, I'll do that, that works. Because that would just be another thought.
Okay, do you have the experience right now of being awake? As opposed to being asleep, you were asleep, you know, I don't know, last night. Do you have the experience of being awake? And describe it to me.
I have the experience of being awake.
No, you have the, now you're going into thinking. Oh, never mind. Go ahead. Describe to me the experience of being awake.
No, I see, I'm beginning to see your point. Just a moment. Okay. So I have the experience of being awake.
What is that? Describe to me this experience.
Okay. So the experience is, now this is good. It's really forcing me to look. So the experience is I have perceptions. I can hear you. I can see you.
Okay, so you are saying that I perceive.
Yes.
Yes, but that's not the question. The question is, do you have an experience of being awake? Because you did say previously, I don't have the experience that I am choosing. So I said, okay, well, let's take a metaphor of being awake versus being asleep. For you to experience being awake, you have to somehow imagine yourself asleep and have a thought that is comparing A to B, bananas and oranges. Yes. And you say, well, wait a minute, it's more like, what's happening right now is more like bananas, not oranges. So therefore, I am bananas. And all you are doing is describing a thought. You are basically looking at a thought and describing a thought. And you're saying, hey, I just looked at the thought. It says it's bananas, not oranges.
Right.
And therefore, you're relying on a thought to describe your experience of being awake.
Okay.
Now, a thought does not know your experience. You know the thought, which appears to you right now as an image.
Right.
But the thought doesn't know your experience. So if you rely on a thought to describe your experience of being awake, you're going at it the wrong way. Similarly, if you rely upon a thought to describe to you the experience of making the choice of turning the video off, you're going about it the wrong way. There is no experience of I. There is no experience of I. There is, when we say about experience of I, we're talking about being. So we know I am. I know I am. I know that there is a reality here, and the reality is not the content of my mind. The content of my mind, its reality is I. The content of my mind is constantly changing, shifting, etc.
Right.
Reality, that which does not change, does not morph, does not come and go, is I. So I know I am via the experience of being, but it's not a mind experience. It is being. I know I am, not via thinking about it, but it's an introspective understanding. It's a non-phenomenal understanding. It's a noumenal understanding.
Right.
Similarly, I know I am awake as a noumenal understanding. It's not a phenomenal understanding. Well, let's say.
Isn't there a distinction when you said how do I know I'm awake? I mean, what I needed to do, I needed to analyze your question. Let's see, awake. What does that mean? Oh yeah, I know what that means. Right. And as you say, I compare that with asleep. Right. I compare it with my experience now. Yeah, my experience looks more like awake than asleep.
Right.
So I said, yes, I'm awake. So it looks like there's a mentation involved in answering that question.
Yes, but in fact, you are awake right now without even thinking about it or doing mentation about it. The fact is you're awake. It's a fact you're awake.
Yes, you're right.
How do you know you're awake? Ultimately, you know you're awake because it's a fact.
Okay, I got that. Yes, you're right. Yeah, I understand.
And of course, you can also contemplate it. You can say, well, besides the fact that I'm awake, let's say, for example, when the human body is awake, it moves, for example. You could say, well, here is a video of me moving. But mainly, you know you're awake as a fact. So
Okay, I get that.
your question is, how do I know that it is I that made the decision of turning the video off? Because you are a fact. I is a fact. Consciousness, awareness is a fact. George is a series of thoughts and images.
Okay, I get that. Now, I am awareness as a fact. George is a series of images and
Okay,
history and all that stuff.
So what turned off the video?
That's the question. What
Yeah,
turned off the video? It seemed like the body turned off the video.
Yeah, but you know the
Sorry,
body.
I don't know that.
The body. Let's say the body is a robot.
No. I take that back. No, you're right. That's not the point. No, so all right. So now the question is, so who turned off the video? Okay.
Yes. So in your experience, go to your experience, ask yourself this question: who turned off the video?
I guess the only honest answer I can say is I don't know.
It's not a tricky question. It's a
no, but I don't know the answer. All I know, it looks like it is a tricky question because it looks like the video got turned off. My body acted. Okay, I pushed the key and I did that. Okay. The key was pushed. My body acted. Okay. But who caused my body to act?
Right.
I don't know that.
Right.
I don't know that by my experience. I'm not sure it'd be difficult. You see what I'm saying? I don't know.
I understand. So the body acts. It moves. Okay?
It moved.
You can film the body moving.
Right.
If we go to our experience of the body moving right now, you move your arm, right? You move your arm, okay? Now, what says my arm is moving? There has to be some thought engagement. There has to be the thought, my arm, first the arm, then my arm, and movement. All of that is mentation, is mind. And I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm speaking non-judgmentally about it. So when we say my hand is moving, we are in the mind, meaning we have determined this is a hand, this is my hand, and this is movement, and this is non-movement. This is movement, this is non-movement. This is movement, and this is non-movement. To distinguish between movement and non-movement, there has to be some sort of mental formulation.
Right.
Now, the mental formulation is basically thought, yes?
Yes.
Now, let's go to the thought. This is my hand. It's a thought, okay? When you look at the thought, what is your experience of it? Do you have an experience of a hand out there or a thought out there, or is your experience of a thought purely consciousness? Meaning, what is the reality of the thought that you're experiencing?
Okay. So the thought really exists in a sense, but of course, the thought is just consciousness.
Yes. Good. So if you come to that understanding, if the thought is consciousness, then my hand, which is again a conceptualization, which is made out of thought, is consciousness.
Right.
Moving versus non-moving, which is also mentation, is consciousness.
It's all consciousness, yes.
So therefore, when you say, I moved my hand and shut off the volume or the video, which is also mentation, which is consciousness. So the whole thing is consciousness.
Okay, now I get it. So, okay.
This is why we say,
I think I'm getting.
We say in consciousness, there is no such thing as doing or not doing. In the mind, yes, there is doing and not doing. But as an interim in sharing the Dharma, when we are assuming the position that there is a personal doer, based on that assumption, and because of that assumption, which is ignorance, we say, wait a minute, the personal doer is something you perceive. It is consciousness that is which is the doer. But ultimately, if you go to deeper understanding, there is no doing or not doing when it comes to consciousness. There is doing and not doing when it comes to mind, to mentation.
Okay, I think I get it now. So going back to my question of choice, the way I see it now, there's no question.
Right.
Right?
There is no question.
If I say, well, did I choose or did I not choose? And it's all consciousness.
It's a non-question.
It's a okay. Okay.
But we have to look at the question as a question and to arrive to the question being a non-question.
Yes, it certainly looked like a pressing question. But now I can see it's a non-question. Okay. I'm going to have to be contemplating that for the next 3 hours. Thank you, Magdi.
Okay, George.
Appreciate it.
Okay. So any question, non-question? Well, I will take this moment to address your question, Richard. Hello, Richard. Richard, you sent a question. Hello, Magdi. Do you have a word or term you use to describe your current mode of awakeness? I have heard you mention different stages of awakening. Could you please explain more about that? Is there an end to that process, or does it continually unfold throughout one's life? Okay, Richard. So the first part of your question, do you have a word or term you use to describe your current mode of awakeness? Yes. The description that fits this question is peace and happiness. Mm-hmm. Yes, peace and happiness. A sort of like Francis says, a benevolent indifference, but that has nobody in it doing anything. Jean Klein used to speak about presence as absence. So it's a presence as absence. And then you ask, I have heard you mention different stages of awakening. Could you please explain more about that? Is there an end to that process, or does it continually unfold throughout one's life? So, Richard, it's important to point out before I go into the question, which is, or part of going into the question, is that what we are, what we truly are, what I is already, it's already whole and complete. It's already, it is the one reality. There's one reality. We've never been, in fact, anything else but I. We've never been, in fact, anything but that spaciousness of being, but consciousness, that has no opposite, that is beyond ignorance and awakening. And yet, we can all speak about our experience as being something else, as being a variety of events and feelings and emotions and contractions and but like when you look up at the sky and you say, oh, the sky is gray because it's covered with clouds. In fact, the sky is not gray. The sky is infinite. It's eternal. It's formless and colorless. So in our life, most of us, we come into this realm feeling like we are a person, we are a man, woman, or whatever. We're somebody. We have specific ideas and images about what we are. And we live our life from that perspective, that we already are, we know what we are. And we're trying to maybe improve what we are, or yeah, sort of enjoy what we are, whatever. But we have an idea of what we are. And this idea of what we are is also, we feel that. So, and so we live in that realm of the ideas and feelings we have. And they're very intricate, very opaque, very condensed. And they are the veil that veils over the peace and happiness of our true nature. And that veil is unhappy. We experience unhappiness. And so this unhappiness is not tolerable. We do not like it. We don't like it because we have an intuition of our true nature as peace and happiness. Because we are that. We are that wide open sky. So that intuition is a true intuition. It's coming from our actuality. But from the perspective of being somebody, in other words, from the perspective of defining ourselves as being somebody, our life, our home, our tribe, whatever, from that perspective, we experience only that. We don't experience the joy and the freedom and the beauty and the love of our true nature. So it's unhappy. And this unhappiness, at some point, leads us to look internally. First, it leads us to look externally into experiences, into events, into things, into addictions, whatever, into situations. But because that outward search doesn't solve the problem, doesn't free us, doesn't bring us to the peace and happiness. Then we start to look internally. When we start to look internally, we may come to realize with a certain guidance, with grace, the help of grace, we come to understand that we start to get a peak of our true nature, that, oh, I am not what I thought and I felt I am. I am not, Richard McDibla. I am not that. What I truly am has no name, no words. There is nothing that can describe what I truly am, but yet I am that. We get a glimpse into our true nature. And when we get a glimpse into our true nature, this is what I refer in my language as enlightenment, as the first glimpse or the beginning of our journey, our path home. Because the path home is an internal path. And one could say that this is the one of the stages of awakening. The first stage is, of course, seeing that it's not out there, getting really clear that it's not out there. It's not in any relationship, it's not in any situation, it's not in any very healthy body or in a wealthy body, it's not out there. It's an understanding. Understandings are insights, where the mind sort of surrenders in that moment. It drops into the understanding. And then, of course, the understanding is the glimpse. The glimpse in our true nature reveals to us that I use the word consciousness, that I am the formless presence, the formless aware presence. And then there is a sort of going into it, stabilizing this understanding that I refers to consciousness. I does not refer to anything that you perceive, to anything you experience. It doesn't refer to the content of thought. It doesn't refer to the content of feelings or emotions. It refers only to itself. It is self-referent. Consciousness is self-referent. There's only one candidate for self-reference, and that is I consciousness. Everything else refers to something else. When you come to that understanding of the self-reference, and you become clear that that is what you are, then what remains is the me feeling. The me feeling is, sometimes we refer to it as the submerged part of the iceberg. Although now there is clarity that I am consciousness, there is still at the feeling level a certain subtle annoyance that every now and then arises into some emotions. So there is our contemplation changes. It becomes both the recognizing yourself as consciousness and also inviting that understanding to be alive, to live that understanding, and to have that understanding live you. At some point during that process, you will start noticing that the annoyance and the unhappiness will start to become less frequent and also less lower in intensity, less intense, more frequent, less frequent and less intense. And this the period between irritations becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and the peak of the irritations becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. And at some point, you will notice that, gee, all is well. I don't recollect When was the last time I was unhappy? Interesting. It's like you don't recollect when your headache ended. At some time you notice, gee, where did the headache go? Who cares? And when did it go? Who cares? So, in terms of the end of that process, or does it continue to unfold? Beyond that, beyond the end of the headache, you find that life becomes, it takes on different qualities. It becomes more celebratory, playful, light, nothing at stake. You know, if you like to do this, you try to do that, you end up doing something else. Oh, it's okay. You're more transparent. And life is a celebration, place of play, and an expression of your love, which is universal love. And also a place of sharing, like we are sharing here, sharing presence, sharing our true nature, which is a way of speaking, of course. And also, you will find that there is more creativity in your life, willingness to try different things, because the thorn of mortality has been removed, and the whole concept of that there is something at stake is no longer present. And of course, there is a functional aspect of life, which we have to do. We have to go down to the market to buy the tomatoes. We have to go to the gas station to fill up the car, or check the battery, or whatever activities that are functional. Some are less.
Hi. Good morning.
Some are good morning.